Okay,
short.
I'll have a comment and a question. I'm Ahmed Atif. I'm a film director. I talked yesterday in the first panel. And I really want to draw your attention to the difference between the elite talk and the masses influence. Please understand that the masses in Egypt or everywhere are influenced more by television and by cinema and by culture, more than by elite talks in closed rooms and by theories and by things that didn't touch the heart of the people. Now there is a fear of extremist idea on our society, and it is a truth, and we have to face it and to discuss about it. You laid the ground to countries, with all the respect, like Saudi Arabia. They paid to the Salafi movement on television 25 billion Egyptian pound to finance the Salafi extremist ideas TVs. And when I look to the European Commission and sorry to say, a poor program like Euromed Audiovisual, it's a big mess. You enforce me to have training, you behave like you are my master to have training. I'm a master holder from Hollywood, for example, and you didn't finance, for example, the production of movies on the south of the Mediterranean, and movies to initiate the... I will give you a small hint. I have a film project from like 5-6 years about Al-Andalus, about Andalusia, and focus about the religious tolerance and the acceptance of the other through the birth of flamenco dance in Andalusia. It's a feature film. It's like a budget of 5-6 million euro, okay? I can assure you with the big companies from Spain and France, we cannot find financing for an important project. A project like Alliance of Civilization, who have made by the UN. There is no money in this organization. You organize your priorities, and the money goes to our region. I'm sorry to say, the EU, of course, they give a lot of money to the government who have been stealing, like mentioned Dr. George Ishaq. But now you have to look to your priorities and to think about the influence of the people on the villages and the poor district of Cairo, in able to make these people civilized. To answer my friend Hisham question, why would the European Commission want we want all to live together, and all our effort and all the money you want to give it to our region is to promote living together. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. It was a comment, rather. Alexander Andreev. Then you, Mr. Betch.
Thank you. That is my name indeed. I've been recently to Egypt. I don't have profound knowledge about the region, but I've been 5 times in Egypt and Morocco, Tunisia. So I spoke to lots of young people, and 2 answers which I got were irritating a bit. Once, talking about democracy and freedom, to me, it was equal to the most of the people I talked to, it was equal to more money. When I ask what is democracy and freedom for you, and they say they should raise our salaries. And then they started to talk about the billions of Mubarak. The figures I've heard, they were amazing, 1,500 billion Egyptian pound, which I can't imagine. Anyway, and the second point was, I was asking them about the peace treaty with Israel. Everybody I asked was against it, against the peace treaty. Is this the mainstream opinion with the young people in Egypt, or just it was an exception? Thank you.
You are a political sociologist. Tell him.
Go first regarding, let's start with the peace treaty. Peace treaty has been in force since 1979, and it faced many disasters and nothing happened. The Egyptian people may resent that there is no peace on the Palestinian side, on the Syrian, on the Lebanese, that the Arab-Israeli conflict is not resolved. But nobody is talking about a war on Israel or scrapping the peace treaty to start a war with Israel. I mean, Egypt has enough domestic problems to care about external problems. They can talk about it, and we sympathize, and we can help humanitarian assistance. And it was a good move that they opened the border with Gaza to pass a humanitarian aid instead of digging tunnels. So that is very important. And I don't see a real, I mean, if there is a true peace with Israel and there is international pressure on Israel to deliver on the Palestinian question, Israel would become like any Mediterranean country and people would live with it. I mean, they have other issues. You need to solve this issue because it is being exploited by radical groups, militant groups against them. In fact, the revolution that took place in all those Arab countries did not talk about Israel. They talk about domestic issues. It was not a revolution, let's have a war with Israel. Others may later, exploit it to do their own political ends. The first issue that you mentioned related to what? Money, yes. The issue, how people understand democracy. For many in developing countries, the corruption had been stealing a lot of money from the people. And so the linkage that you mentioned, that people talk about money and then you talk about the money that was stolen, regardless of what is the size of money that was stolen. I don't imagine that in Bulgaria or any new democracy, you will hear the president or the prime minister having billions of dollars without any accounts. But this is possible in non-democratic countries. And that's why, for them, the issue about democracy and money is related, because it would end corruption. It would get more foreign investors to come to the country when there is no corruption, when there is an independent judicial system that would put the president in jail. This is very important development. What happened in Egypt, that the president is being put in jail through normal legal process of the law.
Okay.
أنا بس معترض على الكلام اللي بيقوله الأخ سعيد، لأنه قضية فلسطين لم تغب عن المصريين لحظة واحدة منذ بداية الثورة. ونحن
The Palestinian problem has never been foreign to the Egyptians. It has always been something to our heart. This treaty has never improved our relations with the Israeli. They have actually violated this treaty several times. So we have to rethink this treaty in order to indeed have genuine peace.
For me, it's quite important. Part of the story with Eastern Europe, which could be very misleading, is because of a very unique historical circumstances. Democratization in Eastern Europe means also support for the market reforms and support for peace. This package does not need to go together. Part of the market reforms started during the old regimes in some of the Middle East countries. So you can expect that some of the democratic sentiments can lead to a very strong anti-market sentiments. And secondly, because also of the Israeli-Palestinian talk, you can see that democracy also making much stronger the voices of a much more radical people when it comes to peace. And I do believe part of the problem for the European Union is to start to believe that democratization in itself is going to solve all other problems. They're going to be treated, in my view, separately. Otherwise, we're going to cheat ourselves. And by the way, we're going to cheat our publics, and they can be blowback in the European domestic politics.
Nikolai Mladenov.
A very small remark. The problem is not that there is a peace treaty between Egypt and Israel. The problem is that despite the treaty, the genuine reconciliation between the Israeli and the Egyptians has not taken place. And it will not take place until and unless there is a Palestinian state which will be able to coexist together with Israel, border to border, as neighbors. And this will not be capable until we resolve the Gaza problem, which means opening Gaza, allowing for a normal economic environment, and removing the roots of circumstances that would feed in radicalist groups.
CFR in Sofia. I'd like to turn back the conversation to Europe. And Europe, before deciding any effective policy, has to look back and recognize the sins of the previous policies, and they're about two. Being allies with nasty people in order to prevent even nastier people coming to power. We are doing well there, I mean, there's recognition. But the other sin concerns our trading policies. Certainly Europe has a lot of market power. If there is one asset for European foreign policy, it's the share the chunk of the market, the size of the internal market. But our trade policies haven't been very generous to this part of the world. Of course, Minister Bildt is absolutely correct that a lot of homework has to be done in the partner countries. But also the European countries can be much more generous. And what my question is, are we prepared to liberalize trade with agricultural goods?
Are we?
This is what the people care on the other side. And when we talk about interest, let's talk about demands on the other side.
Are we?
Yes, we are, and to somewhat larger extent than people are aware of, it's already done. I mean, there are the famous problems of the canned tomatoes and a couple of other things, and there are the issues of textiles, which is very important for the Egyptian economy. I think there is the readiness, yes, but I would stress that point again. These countries also need to reform themselves. One of the reasons the free trade agreements have not been properly implemented in the way they envisaged was the resistance by these countries. Because free trade, these are corrupt economies with oligopolistic practices, people living off corruption. Free trade takes away that possibility. So the vested interest in a lot of these countries prevented free trade. So absolutely, we should drive aggressively from the European side the free trade agenda, because that also drives reform and drives the anti-corruption agenda, which I think is important for political stability. Also agricultural, also textiles, everything, even canned tomatoes.
3 more short questions, please. Then the gentleman behind you, then you, yeah? And I, okay. Okay.
اوكي شكرا. عندي مداخله مقدما على كلماته الاخيره، واريد ان اوضح شيئا بالنسبه الى الثوره العربيه. اولا انا سفير دوله فلسطين في بلغاريا.
I would like to clarify something. The revolutions which began in Egypt were aimed at democracy, whereas the Palestinian revolution has been going on for many years, seeking the same results. And this has helped a lot to the Tunisians and the Egyptians in order to realize what they actually want. If you notice, in these revolutions, irrespective of where they are, the national flags that were raised there included the flag of Palestine. The Palestinian issue is a key issue for all of these revolutions. The best way to achieve peace in the region is peace between peoples and justice between peoples and nations. And this involves the establishment of an independent Palestinian state within the 1948 borders.